Hi, my name's Emily, and today on my channel, The Redheaded Ravenclaw, I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up in my PJs because it's 8:45 and I don't feel like being in makeup anymore, obviously, because I just did my skincare routine. But I have 17 books to talk about, so I just wanted to be comfy and do a chill wrap-up. A few things, a few reminders. I'm not going to go into detail about the manga that I read in the My Hero Academia series. I'm just going to give the ratings. And I'm also not going to talk about the books that I read during the Contemporary-thon because I did a wrap-up for them in my days 4 through 7 vlog. But I will tell you what I rated the books that I read for that readathon. But let's just get into it. So the first book that I read this month was Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It is about a girl named Morrigan who is cursed to die when she turns 12, but then the curse comes to fruition when she turns 11, and she is miraculously saved by this bizarre man named Jupiter North, and he takes her to this place called Nevermore, where she has to compete in trials to be able to become a student at this school for people with magical abilities, but she believes that she doesn't have any magical abilities. And this story has been compared to Harry Potter, which I can definitely see, but it definitely holds its own, and it has its own qualities. It's different, and it's very magical. I love the magic system. I loved the trials. I love the characters. There's a giant talking cat, and it was wonderful. It's a middle grade, and surprisingly there are some dark topics, and it doesn't hesitate to step into a darker, theme, but it's an overall, pretty light story, and it was just there are spooky parts, there's funny moments, and it was just great. I'm really, really excited to continue this series, and like I said, I gave that one 5 stars. Next, I read Ghost Boys by Jewell Parker Rhodes for my Multicultural Literature for Children and Young Adults class, and our first unit was African American literature, so this was one of the choices that we could pick from. And this book is really, really powerful. It's about a young boy named Jerome who gets shot by a white police officer when the police officer mistakes the toy gun that Jerome has for a real one. And Jerome stays in his town as a ghost because he has unfinished business that he has to attend to or whatever before he can move on. And through his time, like watching his trial and things like that, he meets with other ghosts of boys, like other black boys who were wrongfully murdered. And this is a middle grade book, and so it doesn't go super, super heavy, but it is powerful and moving, and it was 5 stars for me. And I normally don't rate books for my classes unless they were already on my TBR, but this one just like moved me so much that I felt compelled to rate it, and I absolutely love it. I really hope that this gets in the hands of children because it's so relevant to the times. It has a great discussion of white privilege, of racism, of prejudice, racial profiling, all these really prevalent topics in our culture right now, and it ties it into these stories like the story of Emmett Till and Trayvon Martin and boys like that who were wrongfully murdered, and it was so, so good. I highly, highly recommend it. The next book I also read for my Multicultural Literature class, and it was The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, and I gave this book 4 stars. I went into it with pretty low expectations because I knew that it was an insta-love story, and I've heard like mixed things about it, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I really, really liked the discussions of culture in this book, And this book is about a girl named Natasha, and her family is about to be deported back to Jamaica at the end of the day. This book is told over the course of one single day. And so she spends her last day trying to talk to immigration lawyers and anybody she can to try to get, to be able to stay in the States. And as she's on her mission to meet with these people, she runs into this boy named Daniel, and Daniel's supposed to be on his way to an interview for an Ivy League school, and Daniel is Korean American, and the story just talks about them, their chance meetup, whether it's fate or coincidence, and talks about them falling in love over the course of one day. And I know that sounds super cheesy, but it was discussed really well, and I think the reason that it goes so well is because the characters do face conflict, and the ending is very realistic, and it's not something that's it's lovey-dovey and everything ends perfect and oh my gosh, we're meant to be together. They fall for each other, but then reality hits, and so it was a really interesting look at that. Like I said, I really, really liked the discussion of culture on both the Korean American side and the Jamaican side, and I liked the characters a lot, and it was just overall really good contemporary. The next thing I read was a picture book called Josephine, The Dazzling Life of Josephine Baker by Patricia Hruby Powell. And I didn't give this one a rating because, like I said, I don't normally rate books for my class, but this was a very interesting look at Josephine Baker's life. She was a Black performer who overcame the odds of her living situation. I believe she's from St. Louis, Missouri, and she was born at the heat of race riots, in the height of race riots in the South, and she overcame her upbringing, I guess, and was able to become a really successful dancer and singer. And she was kind of known for some provocative outfits, and she just had her own style that was ahead of the time. And she eventually ended up living in France and made that her home, where she ended up performing for most of her life. But it was very interesting, and I the pictures, the illustrations were really good, and I think it was very informative, and I would recommend it if you are interested in Josephine Baker's life. This month we continued the Diviners read along and reread the second book, Lair of Dreams. I listened to this mostly on audio book. I think I read a little bit of it physically. And the only reason I have the physical copy of this is because I went to Books A Million and it was in the bargain books for $4. And I think it's because this is not this was before the cover changed to match all of the series together. And I totally forgot about that when I bought this, but I don't mind having it. And I wish that all the covers looked like the original Diviners cover, but sadly, that will never happen. But yeah, we continued on with the second book. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as I liked the Diviners, and I think it's because I felt like this one was too long. I felt like it dragged out, and for a lot of this book, I was very frustrated with Evie because she lets fame get to her. Evie neglects the people who are close to her and who care about her, pretty much all throughout this book, and it drove me up the wall. I was so angry with Evie this whole book, and my expectations of this book were different because I thought this book was going to be more about Memphis, but this one is more about Henry and Ling Chan and Sam. There's more about Sam and finding his mom and things like that, and so I was pleasantly surprised by the twists and turns in this book. There were some things I expected, and there were a lot of things that I wasn't expecting to happen, and I didn't guess where the story was going. I didn't necessarily find it scary. There were spooky elements, but it wasn't scary. I think I made comments on that about the Diviners as well. One thing that really grinds my gear, I hate, is it Bill, the blind man? I hate him so much. I think we're supposed to, but his character makes me so frustrated, and I'm really scared to see what he's going to do in the third book. But we'll be reading that this month, I think. And yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't as good, in my opinion, as The Diviners, but I'm still very excited to continue on, and I'm hoping still that we get some more information about Memphis, and I would like to learn more about, Theta? Zeta? Theta? Shoot. Her name is Theta. I just spent forever trying to figure that out. I would like to learn more about Theta as well, because her storyline has been kept kind of a secret, and I think that's like because of her backstory, but I really, really want to know more, and I think because of how this one ended, we will get more of Theta in the next book. Okay, the next thing that I read was My Hero Academia Volume 8, and I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. This one was a really, really good one, and once I catch up on my manga reviews, you'll eventually hear my full thoughts about this one, but for now, just know it was 5 out of 5 stars. I think I've mentioned it like a zillion times on my channel already, but this month in September, I participated in the Raven Cycle read-along, and we read the entire Raven Cycle series in the month of September. And so I am not going to like go into detail about each of the books because I don't want to be spoilery, but the series is about this girl named Blue, and she's from a family of psychics, but she doesn't have any psychic abilities other than to amplify the like readings and the feelings and emotions and stuff that the psychics in her family have. And she gets prophesied that she's going to kill the boy that she loves if she kisses him. And then there's this group of boys who are called the Raven Boys. That's what Blue names them. And they go to this fancy academy, and they come off as kind of like snooty to Blue, but they are led by this boy named Gansey, and he is on this mission to find a dead Welsh king named Glendower via ley lines in the town that they live in. And the reason that Gansey wants to find Glendower is because it's rumored that if you wake Glendower, then he will grant you a favor. And so the series tells the adventures of them trying to find this dead Welsh king, and the friendships that ensue, and all the warm, gushy stuff that happens because it's super great. And there's a lot of magic and high stakes throughout, and it's just a really, really, really great story. So I gave the Raven Boys 4 stars. I think it's because the writing came off as really pretentious at first, and as I read more, I grew to really like the writing style because it really fits the story, it really fits the boys, and it led to a lot of humorous lines and moments, and I can really appreciate it because I have a super dry sense of humor. I think upon a reread, I might give all of these books 5 stars, but I just don't know. But for now, this one is 4 stars. I also gave the second book, The Dream Thieves, 4 stars. My favorite of the series was book 3, Blue Lily, Lily Blue. I gave it 5 stars. And the 4th book, The Raven King, I gave 4 stars. I really, really love the friendship groups and the friendship pairings between all the people. Throughout each of the books, we get different perspectives of all of the members of the Raven Boys and Blue and other family members and other characters and all of the relations, they start to tie together. And I loved the storytelling, I loved the high stakes, I loved the magic, I loved so much about this series, and I'm really glad that for the first 3 books, Maggie Stiefvater, the author, she was rereading the series as well and live tweeting while she did it, and I think that really helped my reading experience to be more enjoyable. And then the live shows that we did, or that were done for the series by the host of the Raven Cycle Read Along, were really enjoyable to read as well, and I really liked listening to them gush about how much they love the series and all of that stuff. So yeah, it was a really great time. The next thing I read was a short story called Last Day of Love by Lauren Kate, and it is a short story that goes along with the Teardrop duology, and it is the prequel about Ander, who in the first book is sent to kill the main character Eureka because of this ability that she has, and he is from a line of people who can control the wind, and her ability affects his people, and so but he falls in love with her and doesn't want to kill her. And so this is like a prequel story about him becoming a seed bearer, which is the name of the people that have his ability to manipulate the wind. And I think this story was completely unnecessary. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was only 30 pages long. The ebook, it's only an ebook format, and it said it was like 60 pages long, so I thought we would get some really good content, but like 30 pages of it is just the first 2 chapters of Teardrop. And so it was a really, really dumb story. I think it was really unnecessary, and I think if the author really wanted that information there, she could have just put it as a prequel in the first book, like a prologue, but I did not like it, and that's all I have to say about that. The next book I read was Educated by Tara Westover, and this was our faculty staff book club book for the month of September, and I listened to it on audiobook, and this is a very difficult book to read in terms of content. There are a lot of content warnings, honestly, and I would just look up reviews that contain content warnings, because Tara, this is her memoir, and she comes from a survivalist Mormon family, and she went through a really, really tough growing up and just abusive situation, and it was very hard to read. I was like so upset at points that I was like getting nauseous. I had to just like turn the audiobook off and like listen to music or something else and just like process. It's a pretty long audiobook as well, but we had a really good discussion about it at our meeting, and a lot of the faculty really enjoyed the book, and I can't say that I enjoyed it at all. Like, I didn't even give it a rating because like I had no enjoyment reading it, but I can see the merit of her overcoming her situation and being able to get an education after receiving no traditional education until college, and then even getting her doctorate. And so like I can understand the merits of the book and her situation, but it was not an enjoyable read for me at all. And so I left it unrated, and but it's an interesting story, and it's a hopeful story. So if you're interested, I wouldn't say like don't pick it up, but just be cautious going into it for sure. Next, I read My Hero Academia Volume 9, and I gave this one 3 stars. I didn't like it a whole lot. It was quite confusing at some points, even though I have watched the anime and know what's going to happen. I think if I hadn't, I would definitely not know what's going on. But yeah, 3 stars for this one. Okay, and then finally we get into the 3 books that I read for Contemporary-thon. Like I said, I'm just going to tell you the ratings I gave them. I read The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. I gave this one 3 stars. I read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I gave that one 4 stars. And finally, I read Dress Codes for Small Towns by Courtney Stevens, and I gave that one 5 out of 5 stars. So overall, it was a really good reading month. I read several 5-star reads. I read 3 books that were on my 5-star, I read 4 books that were on my 5-star predictions list. And I'm really close to finishing that. I might finish that this month, and if I don't finish it in October, I'll definitely finish in November. And I'm really excited to be reading for spooky season now, and I hope that I can keep up this pace. I don't typically read, I've never read 17 books in a month before. I think my highest before this was 13 or 14, and so I would love to keep this pace going. And I know some people will argue that children's books are not counting, or that short story or whatever. I count everything that I read as, a thing or a book, or, it counts towards my number that I count. And so, I count the books I read for my class, I count audiobooks, whatever it is, I'm going to count it. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to see what next month, or what October brings for me. And I guess let me know what your favorite book was in September and what you're planning on reading in October. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.